Cool. So yeah, we finally made it to the last talk of the conference. Sorry, you're going to have to be put through 25 minutes of me kind of talking about football. I kind of apologize in advance. So just to kind of set the scene, I was scouted at 4 years old. How you can be scouted playing football at 4 years old, I have genuinely no idea. I can't answer that question. I can hopefully answer a couple more, but that one I definitely can't answer. And like football was absolutely everything to me, right? And then when I was 18 years old, I had a career-ending injury, a knee injury, pretty horrific. I could spin my kneecap both ways around my leg. I blew my ACL and blew both the lateral ligaments that basically hold the kneecap in place. It was kind of 18 months of not being able to do anything. And I mean, like, I'm literally relying on my parents to look after me. So it was a pretty humbling experience. And then in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to take you on this journey from like that point forward to what I do now. And I call it the kind of like the ultimate long pass of how I managed to get all the way to the end. And it's kind of an unexpected and transformative kind of career pivot, right? And it's about kind of passion, resilience, and like the lessons learned from playing team sport and how they can transcend and actually help you within kind of tech. And if anyone was downstairs talking to Kelsey's given away like half my talk downstairs and kind of validates some of the opinions that I have, so that's good. So like dodging opponents when I was playing football was actually kind of set me up for dodging code bugs, I guess. So if you came to my talk yesterday, some audience participation, there's some questions throughout this. Get on your phones, take pictures, get involved, no answers, the wrong answer. So let me go back. Are we good? Cool. So yeah, life is full of surprises, right? And like there's many curveballs along the way that kind of forces you to reassess and adapt. And this is kind of like a little journey from like 4 years old all the way up to what I'm doing now. Yeah, I've kind of given away my age. Mistake. And this is the kind of journey that I went on from football to tech. And it was kind of this road of like triumphs and challenges. And it wasn't really where I started. It was how I navigated this line. And this line definitely wasn't straight. Right, this isn't a really accurate representation of what happened. But I want to start with a quick poll. So I want to ask, beyond just one skill or experience, what is the most essential trait for success in any team? So think about sports teams, work, like what makes that one person like truly valuable? I'll let 3 people finish typing. Yeah, and I think there's some great ones on there, right? Like success isn't just one skill. It's like this culmination of different strengths and how you can kind of build them and navigate different challenges together. And like my journey on this kind of board, you didn't kind of talk about it too much, but like it was a lot of teamwork. It was a hell of a lot of discipline. It was a lot of resilience, which we'll come on to in a minute. And then there was like a strategic piece of how I could strategically get from where I was to where I needed to get, right? And these skills cross over from like any journey, right, including yours. Like you've got to keep these ideas in mind kind of moving forward about the list that we've currently got displayed here. So imagine being 4 years old, right, and told you have the potential to play. I don't know, like this was me. I don't know what happened when I grew up. But yeah, you had the potential to like make it big playing football, right? So football was like my whole entire world. Like it became everything. I lived and breathed it. I was playing it, I was practicing it, I was dreaming about being on the biggest stages. Like I thought I was going to be on £1 bajillion a week and not have to worry about all of this cloud native stuff, but alas, that didn't happen. But like dedication taught me one thing, which is like you've got to have ridiculous discipline, you've got to have focus, and most importantly, you've got to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, like we're not going to get anywhere. And it was just like this relentless pursuit of like happiness, going from a very dark place, hopefully to a very light place. And it kind of shaped the approach. So like lessons from football to the workplace, there's more than you think. There's some obvious ones that we've listed here, right? Teamwork, no one wins alone in football. And like if you don't collaborate with the team that you're working with, like it's just a horrific office experience. Communication's pretty obvious. Like one of the things that we did in training is we actually tried to play football in silence, and it's absolutely impossible. And it's similarly to when you try and build products, right? If you build products in silos, which is kind of the equivalent of not talking to each other in silence, you're not going to build a good project. And then kind of the biggest one for me personally is like empathy. Like empathy in football and also in tech is like understanding your teammates and kind of meeting them in the middle and like building better teams and understanding like users. Like if once we can understand users, we understand their pain points, we build better products to fix them. And then we've got some like other obvious ones around kind of strategy and leadership. So like you can't really play football without having a plan, although like the football team that I support right now, like which is Manchester United, I think they do try and play football without a plan, but that's a different story. But it's like vision and execution, right? Leadership, self-explanatory, right? Captains on a pitch, project leads in a tech team, like guiding and making tough decisions. That's kind of their job. And then agility is like really, for football as well, is like thinking on your feet. But in tech, it's like, can we pivot as we get different tech challenges or like new tools? Like everyone's going to have to try and do a pivot now to AI, I guess. And we're all just going to have to become AI engineers rather than YAML engineers. So the ones that I kind of relate to the most are really these three here. So you've got performing under pressure. So like the last minute of a game is the kind of equivalence to like that tight deadline in tech where you've just got to like get your head down and just grind it out and work a stupendous amount of hours, I guess, trying to get to the end destination. And then resilience, right? There's a lot of resilience in football. We can talk about losing games. We can talk about getting injured. We can talk about like bouncing back defines your career, like in both technology and also in sport. And then mental stamina, right? So mental stamina is like, we need to focus on the whole game, right? And it's sustained concentration in tech. But these are like all qualities that make a high performance team and they shouldn't be like forgotten about. So hands up if anyone has any idea what this percentage is. Go for it.
I guess successful soccer careers from all the young boys who start with.
Yeah, so this is the percentage of academy players that actually make it into professional football. So like that's a staggering stat, right, of how difficult it actually is to reach the top. But many of us like have these hopes and dreams, but we're never actually going to achieve it, right? And I was lucky enough for a very short period of time to actually achieve that. But I'm not telling you that like pursuing professional sport isn't worth it, like it is. But like the importance here is I had to be prepared for another path, because this percentage gets drilled into you when you're 16 years old, that you've got to have some other path. There's many other paths you could have. I could have been a commentator. I could tell everybody that I knew everything about football, which I quite clearly don't. But I wanted a different path. I didn't want to be like everybody else. So then this happened. So yeah, I had a knee injury at the age of 18, and it kind of changed everything for me, right? The dreams of professional football had kind of gone. I was devastated, right? But the thing with setbacks is you can have ridiculously good comebacks if you have the mental stamina to just push forward and like never give up on what you want to do. And it's about confronting your loss and realizing that you've got a choice, right? You've got a choice of two things. Number one, you let the setback define you, or number two, you redefine yourself, right? They're the two options. So there was a number of tough periods, like after my injury, like I felt completely lost. People that I thought were friends turned out to not be my friends when there's no money flowing in. I got ridiculously depressed. The level of depression was like I threw my bed through my bedroom window, and my parents found me underneath my desk, like crying. I was in hysterical. Like I thought my whole life was over. I had literally no idea what I was going to do. And it took like a lot of different avenues to try and get me back to where I wanted to be. There was a lot of counseling. There was a lot of talking to other people. And then I like realized I needed a new path, right? I wasn't going to let this setback define me. I had to move forward. And the career that I wanted to have in football, and I wanted to be on the biggest stages, like I was going to translate that into something else. I was going to be on a stage no matter what. It was just going to be a slightly different stage. And like I explored a lot of new interests. Like I thought I could draw. That turns out that I can't draw. I then thought I could cook. I could cook a little bit, but I was never going to make it that well. And then, like, my dad luckily kind of gave me a foot up, right? So he worked in technology, and I saw he was doing pretty well for himself. And he had this computer, and he was writing this code that looked nothing like the books that I read at school. And I was like, what the hell are you writing? Like, there's 50 words all kind of mangled together. Like, what are you doing? So I want to ask another question, which was, like, have you faced a challenge that, like, made you reconsider your direction? And if you have, like, that's great, right? It's in these moments of questioning where we find like our real true strength, because challenges like shape who we are today. Everyone's got a journey, everyone's got a story to tell, and it's like these stepping stones of challenges that really define who you are as a human. So when we talk about challenges, there was obviously a lot of challenges for me to go from like playing professional football to like trying to understand what IT was, and there was like a lot of learning to do, right? And it felt absolutely overwhelming. Like if you just look at the cloud native landscape, you have to zoom out to see everything, right? And Kelsey was talking about in his keynote, there's like tens of logging frameworks, and then like what monitoring stack and what monitoring tools do you kind of go after? And it was so invigorating because I felt like I was 4 years old again. It felt like new, but like completely unfamiliar. And like the world was kind of my oyster. I had a number of things that I could go after, and essentially like learning tech became my new training ground, right? I spent all of the time that I would do on the training ground like learning new technology. Some of that was a waste of time. I won't name the languages that I think were a waste of time, and some of them were less of a waste of time, and I'm actually using them today. But like tech is vast, right, and constantly evolving. So I was learning like coding, I was learning, trying to figure out what the hell a cloud was. Then I was trying to like understand differences from Azure and AWS, and there's a ton of them. But I kind of like leaned on that discipline and resilience and persistence that I had from football, and I just kept going, right? And then like it felt like I was on this kind of journey, right? So I had to, at the beginning, I was kind of starting from scratch. And I felt like that 4-year-old kid that was like overwhelmed again. And then like moving forward, I had to embrace the new challenge, which I was talking about, right? Which was like technology. And then I had to I needed to find a niche, because if I could find a niche, I could kind of lean in on that niche, and that would differentiate me from like everybody else. And Kelsey was kind of talking about it downstairs, right? It's like, how do you differentiate yourself from the next person? And he had a good analogy, which is like, if you were a janitor, if you were in an office, would you hire the janitor that just knew how to do janitoring, or would you hire the janitor that actually built the mop, right? They're both going to do janitoring at the end of the day, but the fact that he's built a mop, he probably, or she probably knows how to use it, probably maybe a little bit better than somebody else. So it's really about understanding and having this niche which kind of differentiated me from someone else. And mine was like the story that I had and how I could use the stuff that I learned playing professional sport into what I did on my day-to-day job, which was a lot about communication and how I navigated difficult situations. It wasn't so much about being the best technologist and being able to write the best and most incredible code. Like there's plenty of other people that can do that. It was really about navigating these difficult situations and being able to talk to different people. And then if we kind of roll forward, I ended up becoming a consultant and trainer. So now, like, I've trained over, I think it's like 8,000 people worldwide as a trainer on all different kinds of cloud-native technologies. And it's so great to be able to share this like new love and passion that I have and continue to learn as I go. And it all started with that decision right at the beginning to like just pivot and go with something. And like I was talking about it yesterday, right? That North Star, where you just got to keep going, and maybe or maybe not, it turns out to be the right decision, and if it doesn't, we just find another North Star and go again. And then I discovered Kubernetes, right? And it felt like this kind of missing puzzle to me, because like Kubernetes is all about orchestration and managing components effectively. And if you think about that as football, like every player has a role on the team. Like you don't have 11 strikers for a reason, because you can't all be standing in the penalty box, right? And success depends on how you coordinate this team. And it's very similar to Kubernetes, right? Success is how you coordinate all of your workloads running on your cluster and how you position them best for your organization. Very, very similar to kind of like being a manager in football, figuring out what's the best structure, what's the best strategy. And like, I loved it because it combined like my favorite things, right? Strategy, teamwork, and discipline. And it kind of led to a bigger passion, which was around building self-service platforms for developers. And it kind of took this football and Kubernetes thing to a whole nother level. So, like, if you draw on self-service platforms like in a tech world, right, it's all about how quickly and easily we can empower developers, but giving them some kind of guardrails so they don't do anything silly. And it's very much like players, right? Players need to be able to make quick decisions, but they need to be able to work in a framework where they can't make silly decisions like running offside, as an example. And like agility today is key in today's tech environment. So developers need to be able to deploy quickly without any manual process delays, although there are obviously some manual process delays. But they need to have the freedom to work within that structure that supports like the efficiency and quality that we're going with. So there's a number of parallels between kind of playing professional sport and technology, and those skills kind of transfer to the workplace. So like football, we learn about teamwork, we learn about discipline and strategy, resilience, perseverance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But like the real thing is it's about how you coordinate complex systems. Like I was coordinating complex players on a football pitch, but we have complex number of containers in a cluster, right? And we have to figure out how we work and how we construct those. And success really comes from kind of understanding and combining these strengths all together and making something that's like more powerful than the sum of its parts. So it's football and tech, right? They both highlight the importance of this human element. Like you've heard the phrase, the tech is easy, right? And it's all the human part that's actually the difficult piece. And in football, it's the same. It's about like, how do I make connections with players? How do I build communication? And how do I build trust, right? It's not all about skill. And the same thing happens in tech, right? The tools and the code like matter, but the difference is the people, right? And once we understand like that the technology is just driven by a bunch of people behind the scenes that are collaborating, like the human connections and the collaborations are the actual things that drive success, not like how many lines of code I can write in my Terraform provider. And then like personal branding is not about just, you know, how many Twitter posts can I do or like how many talks can I do. It's about creating value for others, right? It's not about this kind of self-promotion. And in football, if you think about like reputation, the reputation comes from like how well do you support your teammates? How well do you lead off the pitch? How well can you perform under pressure? And the same is in tech, right? It's about collaboration. It's about building trust. It's about talking to other people, getting comfortable being uncomfortable, getting in front of people, talking about things, disagreements, like discussions, et cetera, et cetera. And it's about like being authentic, right? And adding value into every interaction that you have, no matter if it's with the most senior person or like an intern. And it's about kind of creating opportunities for yourself, but also other people. And like success is amplified in the community, right? In both technology and tech, like no player or professional achieves greatness alone, right? And that's why I kind of started the Cloud Native Club in July. And the idea behind this is to give back to the community that gave me so much when I was 18 years old. Like without people like Kelsey, and I actually went and spoke to him today, like I would have never have done Kubernetes. He jumped on a Zoom call with me and taught me Kubernetes. I had literally no idea what it was. And then the next day I went into this organization that I was working at and told them that we should be running it in production. Probably not the best idea, but we move on. So yeah, it's a place whereby we support everybody, we support each other, we share knowledge, and most importantly, we gain skills. And I invite you to join, right? But like challenges aren't obstacles, right? They're opportunities. And people think about them as these obstacles, but they're actually just opportunities for us to grow and learn, and most importantly, like come back stronger, right? And these setbacks and like difficult moments have shaped who I am personally. And it's about like embracing new challenges and like using them for strength. And like, think to yourself, like, what challenges have you had over your career and how have they kind of shaped them? And like, take a moment when you've left the conference to like reflect on those, because they're like the turning points in your career that define like who you are today. So if I was going to leave you with 3 kind of key takeaways, I'd say like the 3 takeaways for me are resilience, constant learning, and adaptability, right? Resilience to keep going when things don't go to plan. Like learning is continually evolving in this kind of constantly changing tech landscape. Like we're all going to have to become AI engineers now. I just spent like 4 years learning YAML editing. Now I'm going to have to learn how ML works. And then like just being adaptable, embrace changes and embrace new opportunities and pivot and learn new things, right? There's so many things out there that we could be doing. And it's just up to us to make that decision. So the final poll is like, which quality do you think is the most important for success? Is it resilience, continuous learning, or adaptability? And hopefully... Conference Wi-Fi. Oh, interesting split. Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. I thought continuous learning would be a little bit more, but I agree. Like adaptability is important, especially like in today's tech landscape, where like whatever you learn today is like old by like 3 weeks time, and we constantly have to adapt to what's moving around us, whether that be ML, whether that be WebAssembly, whatever it may be. So, like, I now have a different perspective on how I go about like life and work, right? It's about bringing diverse elements together. Like football and tech, they both involve orchestrating kind of people, skills, and technology. But the most important thing is it's got to be for a common goal, right? It's about making sure that we have the leadership and strategy to execute, right? And like, I want to leave you with kind of one final thought, which is I want you to embrace change. I never ever want you to fear it ever again, right? Welcome it as an opportunity to learn, to grow and evolve, because every setback is an opportunity. Like no matter however big the challenge is, it's like a chance to grow. Whether you're on the pitch, behind your laptop, or like anywhere in life, just remember like the journey is more important than the destination. The journey is actually like the most enjoyable part. I absolutely hated it at the beginning, but I found it such an incredibly enthralling experience to be able to learn new technology and actually make the decision to choose what I wanted to do. And like always keep pushing forward, right? Learning and most importantly, evolving. Yeah, hopefully I spelled this right. Yes, I did. Thank God for that. Yeah, thanks for sticking with me, and especially like a talk that's about football, right? But I want to take a second to thank the sponsors and all of the organizers of this conference. Like, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be able to have these chats with you today. So I want to do a little round of applause for the sponsors and the organizers. And it's been an incredible few days of learning and connecting with you all. And hopefully, if you haven't, scan this, connect with me. And yeah, we can go to Slido, and hopefully if you've added some questions to the Q&A, we've got a little bit of time to ask them. Or not.
Because you have such a wide experience, how nowadays is your idea, maybe you have some to inspire kids by tech, where they using technologies usually for gaming and quick consumption, instead of trying, to get into resonating, into doing some brain stuff.
Yeah, so we're like one of the things that we're doing as part of the Cloud Native Club is like in London, because I have like a bigger network in London of people to reach to, is we're actually trying and working to get into schools to actually talk to them about, like you're saying, right? They spend so much time on their phone glued to games. Like, but how can we teach them and leverage the fact that they're obsessed with games for like a greater good, and learning like what it actually takes behind the scenes to make these games that they're so addicted to, and like rounding out that skill set a little bit so they become a bit more inquisitive, and it's just not necessarily just a game that they're playing, but they ask the question like, how does the ball bounce up and down, and how when you throw it against the wall does it bounce back? How does the maths kind of work behind the scenes? So that's something we're kind of working on at the moment specifically for that. The other thing we're doing is we are partnering with a company in Pakistan to talk and help women that are of certain religions that have to stay at home, right? And they have untapped potential. And how can we get, in today's remote world, how can we get into a position whereby we can provide them and give them jobs and education so that they can make the most of the time that, they have some freedom and they have some flexibility to be able to work. So they're the kind of two things that we're working on right now.
What kind of software are you using with the kids?
Say again?
What kind of software do you use?
At the moment, we're just in negotiations trying to get like that, see if we can even get into schools, because there's a number of hurdles in the UK that you've got to jump through to even just be able to get there. Very early, yeah.
What do you do to stay up to date with all the new?
It's funny, I got asked that on a podcast last week, and I gave an answer, and he like opened his eyes really wide when I said it. I don't. I just choose the things that I care about the most. Like if I'm working for a specific client and we're dealing with a specific say like we're dealing with observability, like I'll stay up to date on observability because they're most likely to be asking me questions about that. But I'll keep an eye on what's going on around. And then I kind of, when I've left that client, I kind of pivot to the next one and they're doing monitoring and I go and do monitoring or something like that. It's absolutely impossible to keep up with everything. Like, it's, yeah. I spent like 8 years as a consultant and like every single time I was trying to keep up with everything. And then you realize that actually everybody's trying to solve the same types of problems and you only need to really focus on like a small subset of that. And there's like all these advanced technologies that are moving forward, right? And they have extreme power, but like they're going to take some time to get to production. This microphone's gone. Yeah. But if you look at like how long it took Docker to go mainstream, like some of these other technologies, they're going to take some time to go mainstream. So yeah, I could learn them, but actually, by the time I get to customer site, they're just like, what's your opinion on that? So as long as I have some kind of loosely held opinion, but I have strongly held opinions that can be challenged in other areas, that's more advantageous to them than me knowing everything. I can't possibly do that. Hey.
One last question from my side, at least. So, how would you distinguish, or would you advise people on how to distinguish trend technologies between something that actually will be the future technology that will stay and actually will be useful?
So you're saying I'm paraphrasing your question.
Yeah.
So how do I make sure that people aren't learning hype technologies and learning technologies that are actually going to be useful to them in the future?
Yeah, for example, you had, as a young, you said you had multiple choices of languages, and then some of them you wouldn't learn them, and you would. So how do you choose today in a way that the choice will be more helpful in the future?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, right? You've got to look at like the trends of where the organizations are going, right? So like Rust is becoming a little bit more popular now. So like, do we hedge all of our bets on Rust? Maybe, maybe not. But like the cloud native ecosystem, and that's the ecosystem that I spend the majority of my time in, is all written in Go. So if I was going to learn a new technology, if I was younger, I'd learn Go, and then I'd be keeping an eye on Rust in the background. So I'd do like a pet project maybe in Rust, but I'd build something in Go, break it, fix it, like scale it, get it deployed onto a Kubernetes cluster, think about logging and monitoring, or like build an actual system as if you were running in an enterprise organization, not at that scale, but learn how systems talk to each other, right? Everyone can write lines of code and create an API that has a bunch of endpoints, but like the real skill is being able to stitch these different things together. And it's that ability to be able to stitch things together that I think is more important. So like, you have to have an opinion upon like the tool chain that you want to use that can be strongly held but can be like challenged. And it's really about what options do I have available to me at the time, and then what ones are most people using, but also like what are the niche ones that are kind of coming up. So to kind of answer your question, it's a little bit challenging in terms of like if I was a kid right back at the beginning, if I was going to learn to code, I'd learn in Go. That to answer your question kind of directly, and then I would be building a platform for myself. So I'd build a self-service platform for myself on my laptop and learn all of the things that it takes to be able to do that. And then when I go into an organization, I can say, look, I've done it. I haven't done it like in an organization because I'm trying to get a job, but here's what I did. Here's the lessons that I learned, right? Because the lessons that you learn and the battle scars that you have are like far more important than the fact that you can write 10 lines of Go code. Like that's 2 to a penny. It's really like what skill sets you have outside of that and how can you translate that into what they're trying to hire you for. Everyone? Anybody else? If not, we'll call it there. Thanks so much for your time.